Hi, everyone. Welcome to Survivor Now podcast. Today, Nina and I are talking to the 11th castaway eliminated from Survivor Australia, Titans versus Rebels. We're talking to Scott. All right, Scott, I was not expecting to talk to you today, but first, before we get to the elephant in the room, I want to know, how was your viewing experience? Have you been catching up with the season? Have you been watching? What was it like to see these episodes?
It's been so fun. This last week's obviously been a little bit more anxiety inducing because you know your episode's coming up, and you can't help but wonder how it's going to look and be edited, and you're just praying it sort of does it justice. And I was so happy last night watching it.
Good.
Had some friends around. We had some good Mexican food. I was pretty happy.
I
That
love
was a
to
really good
hear that.
episode.
It really was. And so it sounds like you are very satisfied with how your overall story has been told.
Yeah, you always feel lucky. Every moment that you're shown on there and you see a little bit of your gameplay or people get to see a little bit of who you are, you're like, oh, that's awesome. And as a fan, that doesn't happen all that often too. It's so easy for you to just kind of, not appear at all or not get a sense of who you are across. And obviously I started out a little bit like that. But that's also the game you play. So, going on Survivor, if you're going to play a quiet game and a shadowy game, you're not going to be the main talking point. That's the whole point.
And talking about your game, from the beginning, you always kind of seemed, in the bits that we did see, like the middleman. You always kind of, not necessarily a swing, but like you talked to everybody on both sides. It was kind of open. Was that on purpose? Did it just so happen that you naturally filled that slot?
Yeah, it was kind of a natural thing. I didn't go on there thinking I would be on the fence or the swing vote at all. I just thought I would make genuine connections with everyone and try and just find sort of a friendship with everyone for some reason, whether it was the strangest fact. I was like, find something about them that you can kind of latch onto. And then, because I knew that would come in handy later, you never know who you're going to have to work with, right?
Yeah.
But then sure enough, I just found myself working with sort of Eileen and Garrick, which wasn't shown a lot of, but the three of us kind of came together and we were like, oh, cool. What an unexpected little alliance. Let's just keep this in the background, tell each other what's going on, be real with each other. And, they'll know what Kirby's doing. We'll know what Ferris is doing. It's just a really nice way of keeping everything level and them not have to worry that that's going on.
Yeah.
And that just ended up with me and Eileen kind of falling into that sort of split vote for some reason then instead.
And with that, what was your proudest moment in the game? Like, you're making all these secret alliances we didn't even know about. What was something you're really proud of?
I think some of the challenges, the last thing I expected was to go on there and be good at some of the challenges. I just thought no one's going to, it's like you're being picked last on the bench, right? You're like, I'm so used to that. So I was like, oh, no one's going to want to be like on my team. And then suddenly you start doing these things and you see where people's strengths lie. And I love a puzzle and I love anything endurance based because I love pushing myself. So I was like, oh, whenever something like that would pop up, I'd suddenly find myself getting excited about that side of the game. And also you're going into these fields and you know this better than anyone. You're seeing these beautiful giant like children's playthings made, but in adult size. And you're like, who gets to do that?
Oh, I mean, that was one of my favorite moments, was seeing you talk about your career and then how it sort of seemed like it helped you with the puzzle in that one challenge. That was a really great arc to see. Your relationship with Kitty, now we're sort of getting into today's episode. Your relationship with Kitty, how did it form? It seemed like it came about pretty quickly, or were there interactions that we did not see?
Yeah, they obviously there's so much not shown, and the night times are often the thing that gets cut. And that night we had in the Rebels camp, being back on that beach, I was just saying before, it's kind of disconcerting when you get back to this new camp again and you don't have a bed, you don't really have a place where you fit. And Kitty and Eden were just awesome. Kitty pretty much was like, you're sleeping between us tonight. This is where you sit. We'll keep you warm. We'll keep you safe. And she could just tell I was going through the motions. And sure enough, that night we just stayed up and chatted, and Caroline too. And they were just telling me stories, and like Kitty's sense of humor and Eden, they're such funny people and so dry. And just they took me out of the game, which is exactly what I needed in that moment. And I just saw this beautiful, like, honest side of a human in Kitty, and just really vibed with it. And then the next day, obviously I was feeling pretty emotional, and it's not really my style to kind of just throw everything out of the pram, but I felt like everything just hit in that moment. And Kitty was asking me what was going on. And I was like, I can't lie. This feels so disingenuous to just lie to you in this moment when it's not even something I want to do tonight. I don't even want to vote that way. And, you know, that's how mine and Kirby's relationship worked out there. It was very much a true alliance, like in every sense of the word, like a best friend outside of the game. You tell each other everything. You consider everything with each other. Like there wasn't one vote in that game that we didn't talk through for a long amount of time and process and think about all the scenarios and all the fallouts of that. And where Kirby might not have known a lot about the game of Survivor, that's where I could really help her, and where she was really good with confrontation and being amazed. Like I reference Sandra all the time, Nina. Like I've not seen someone do it so well, be able to use confrontation as like an actual superpower. Because it's such a thing that not a lot of people are good with confrontation, and Kirby not only is good with it, but she can use it and weaponize it to almost get other people to admit to things and to say things that they wouldn't otherwise talk about. And I was not only shit scared of being on the other end of that, so happy to see her like underneath that.
Yeah.
But I was also so like in awe watching someone do that, and was like, God, you're an amazing player of this game.
Oh,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
it is awesome to hear. I love hearing this perspective on things. You mentioned something about Garrick and how you two were actually working closer than at least from my viewing experience, than I even realized.
Mm.
And you actually had a hand in his eventual blindside. So
Yeah.
coming into this tribal council where Kitty is the name that is told to you, what was it about this specific point in the game that affected you enough to choose to leave?
Honestly, it was like a culmination of all these different things. The Garrick one was tough, but it wasn't as tough because what wasn't shown as well was the actual vote that night. It was supposed to be Ferris and everything was going as planned, but then last minute, the group decided to change that and shift it to Eileen. Now, me and Eileen stayed strong the entire game. Like we were super secretly working together. And so we told each other everything. And even though we knew she was with Ferris, I was with Kirby, we almost had this bizarre respect for that, but then still would look out for each other. And so, and I knew Eileen was some part in the process of like merge going to be a part of my game. So I wouldn't sort of want her going. And they shifted the vote to be to Eileen that night. And when I was told that, I was like, no, guys, this can't be the vote tonight. Like, let's make it Garrick if you're not wanting to do Ferris. So that's why we ended up going that way, which felt sad because I loved Garrick and was like, but it was that or Eileen in that moment. And I was not willing to let Eileen go. She was my little like Broadway friend out there. We were singing every night and keeping each other in good spirits. So then when it came to this Kitty thing, it just felt different. Like there was a lot going on. And honestly, almost the game was so separate to the mental health thing. Like that was creeping up anyway. And I honestly believe if I hadn't have even been on Survivor, that would have probably hit. Who knows how that journey works in your head. And that probably just pushed it to the forefront, being out there in the jungle. But that would have still been going on. And I still battled that outside of the game. It's not like Survivor brought that on. I think if anything, if I'd have pushed through that night, it would have just been a Band-Aid, right? A few episodes later, I could have been either blindsided or going through it all again worse. And, you know, I'd struggled the whole game with my sort of mental health and had people like Kirby and Garrick pulling me through, and Eileen always been like, you're fine, you got this. And then this time just felt different. And like it had been over a year since I'd had something this dark outside of the game. So it just was so shitty that it hit when it did, and in the middle of the best part of the game that I'd been playing so hard to get to a good position for that stage of the game. I was like, of all the times for this to hit, really now, brain? But you don't have a choice in that sort of stuff. And I've learned that in the past, you know, you're better going with it and not fighting against it because it's your brain at the end of the day. It's not going to just go away.
I really like that you say that and explain that as well. And I know Survivor, they edit how they edit, but sometimes I wish they still incorporated just a little bit more of those moments where whether it's support singing together, as long as they have the license to show that, or even if they like bleep it a little bit and you can just guess what you're singing. But because you were talking about Kirby, Ferris, all that, I did want to know, watching and knowing how sometimes the show is edited, when you're talking to Kitty and Caroline and you're, you know, pretty much telling her like, hey, your name has come up. We then see Kirby kind of watching you and asking if you're okay. It cuts, doesn't even show the conversation. And then you're talking to Alex. We also see Alex really emotional at tribal council. My survivor brain goes, I wonder if that was different. Was that more of the mental health side? If you can answer, or was that genuinely she's just like eavesdropping, heard you say that and say, whoa, 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 hey, you okay? Let's go over here.
No, it was definitely more the mental health side. Like Kirby was like watching me intensely because I think I was tearing up in that moment, and she was watching, like being like, "What's Scotty doing? Like, let go of that top. Like, we need to go and chat." And also, it's not my style, right? I like even being emotional in that moment and telling Kitty in the way that I did. It wouldn't be how I'd choose to do it if I'd have been sound of mind in that moment. I would have still done it as I did it, but I wouldn't have done it in the way I did it. And I think Kirby was more watching and seeing something in me and being like, okay, I need to check in outside of the game now on him. And Alex did the same thing. I got on so well with Alex out there. There's so many moments that aren't shown, right? I could talk to you all day about so many things that happened, but I was playing pretty tightly with Alex for moments there. And especially when he finally came to the Titans tribe, like I loved getting to show him around, and I knew he had the idol. And I remember him being like, dude, am I playing this tonight? And I was like, I will honestly tell you, I don't think, like, don't waste that idol. Because as much as, I'm playing with Kirby and I'm playing with this tribe and I want people to flush things and I want people to work, you've also got to be thinking, well, there's going to be a time when I need that person more than my alliance needs that person. And I want to be in with that person. And there was a lot with Alex to connect with. And so it was a pretty easy friendship to make. And he was also battling with stuff out there, his own journey. So I think when we're at Tribal, it was actually just really beautiful watching that last night and getting to see, in the moment, I was so in my own head. But I just remember being surrounded by love and feeling like the weight of it around me. And last night, it was just epic getting to see that back and be like, oh, wow, I wasn't imagining that. It was like this physical force of like support. And even outside of the game, I feel like I've got the biggest shield of these human beings who you've had this experience with, and it's like this crazy family that are just willing to really back you, and I love that.
I will say it felt different watching that tribal council. We've seen people quit the game in the past, and we've seen how it's typically been edited. Sometimes it's edited in a way that's very disappointing on the player itself. Scott, you're right. There was a lot of love, at least I felt as a viewer. And it's great to hear that you also felt that in return from your other castaways. Did any castaways know that was about to happen? It sounds like that people were sort of keeping you talking, like keeping the morale high. Did people know going into that tribal council that there was a chance that you were going to say, it's time for me to go?
Yeah, I think so. It was definitely playing on people's minds, and people were wondering at Tribal, like, oh, this is going on quite a while, and we've still not got to whether Scott's made his decision or not. So I think everyone was definitely thinking about it. And it definitely felt in my head like, oh, this weight that I just needed, like it was the elephant in the room, which is often mental health, right? It's literally known as that. And I think sort of experiencing that live in a tribal council, amazing. Like, who gets that opportunity? And what a beautiful, vulnerable moment for Australian Survivor too. Like, I feel so proud of Australian Survivor for doing it the way they did. And like, the crew were incredible. Like, I felt so backed up and so heard, and they really let it have a moment last night, which we've not really had that on our Survivor yet over here. And it's still only at season 9. Like, it's not had its time to really show that diverse a cast of people where things like that are going to come up. So it was bound to happen eventually. And at the time, I just thought, I remember thinking it sucked that it had to be me. But then now I'm kind of proud and glad it was me, because I'm like, it's something I'm so happy to talk about and so willing to be there and be an advocate for it and be there for people. And I'm like, God, that's what I wish I'd have had growing up and watching Survivor. If there'd have been someone like me on TV doing that, I'd have needed that. Not necessarily loved it in my game, but I'd have like needed it, which is more important.
Yeah, and I can agree. Like, I'm glad you hit on the point about the support, because that was actually going to be one of my questions. Like, what did it feel like? And you explained that. And to kind of go off what Matthew said, the way they edited it, because I can't lie, there's times where I see people who are just, the way they edit it, it's just a disappointing leave.
Yeah.
But I did feel, we were actually talking about this before you hopped on, it was edited so well. And I feel like they showed your genuine feeling as much as you were portraying it, that made me feel like this is the best decision, especially when Eden, was looking at you. You guys were having that interaction, the way you explained it. I was even like, this is probably the best thing. And I'm not even going to feel any type of way. This person needs this, and they know that. And the fact that you acknowledged it and you actually said it yourself, and then they kept it in the edit, I think is really important, including that bit at the end with like the helpline. We were talking about the phone number because ours are so long. I was like, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's the phone number. Absolutely love that. But one little bit that I know your brain is in a different area at that point, but can I ask, was the fact that jury was coming up, was that playing a factor? Because you would still have to stay.
Definitely, yeah. And no one knew when it was coming.
Yeah.
We all knew it was a big merge, which was so excited for too. And that was all going through my head as well. I'm like, oh my God, I've made merge. Like, this is such a huge tick off any Survivor fans list. But then you also know with that, it comes jury. And I was like, shit, that's the worst scenario for me right now, right? Like, imagine me ending up stuck in a hotel where I'm still not able to talk to my loved ones that much, and I still don't have all of my work on my coping mechanisms, and I'm also not in the game anymore. It's like a lose-lose scenario. So I'd have either really had to stick it out, and then you're sticking it out, that's another 20 days in game. Like, I'd already done 27 and it's 47. Like, you forget how long Australia is. And I was looking down the barrel of that. And again, I thought, I was looking around, seeing all these players wanting to go so hard. And I wanted to so badly be on that level with them and be like, jump in, Scott, just like put both feet in. You love this. And this is what you've been playing towards. And you have no idea how hard that struggle was, like having to force myself to be like, put this first, because I was so close to putting Survivor first and actually just powering through. But then I feel like that would have been, watching back last night, I could see a shell of myself and like me going into a place that I don't want to see on TV. And I don't want my loved ones or my family watching that version of me on TV. So I'm so glad I made the call I did. Like, that's worth way more to me than getting further in this time and in this season, like that's what I needed to do right then. And I leave being really proud of like the little game I did play. Like, I was never floated as an even potential vote. Like, my name was never written down. I wrote down the right name every single time. I felt like I had a pretty good shot at going into that merge of good friends built around me. But then also hit Survivor and its merge, you have no idea. Like, if that had have been a very live tribal last night, if I had have said, actually, I'm not, who knows? Like, I could have still gone that night. You never know what the universe has in order.
Whoa, I did not realize. So you and Charles both voted correctly at every single tribal council and then did not vote at your elimination. That's very interesting statistic, right? But you actually said something that really got me thinking. You two know better than me because you two have played this. It seems like you have to be in the right mindset at the right time to go into a game like this and to be able to continue the momentum. So, Scott, I'm wondering, do you have anything to say to fans of the show that believe that castaways who quit should have known what they were getting into? I feel like we always see this sort of come up on social media when something like this does happen on the show. There's always that argument, they should have known, it was Survivor. Like, how could they not know? Do you have anything that you would like to say to those people?
Well, like, I went into the game fully aware of that and was so ready for all of that. I think the game and mental health are separate for me. Like, the game, I was ready to go all in, but you don't choose when. Why would I have chosen for that to be my end of the game? Like, no one wants that to be how they leave Survivor. So I'd have loved to keep playing hard, and I was still with people I absolutely love. It's not even like I was in a minority and was terrified of where things were going. I just, had my moment, and my health was more important in that. Like I was just saying before, things happened earlier on in the game. I was in hospital one night, like on a drip. Medivacs aren't shown this season. Like, things haven't been, my physical and mental health hadn't been great the whole time. There'd been all these peaks and troughs. And I think people just need to sort of liken it to other shows. Like, MasterChef's a great example over here, right? Like, we had Brent do the same thing 2 years ago. He put his hand up and very bravely took himself out of the game when he was doing so well. And then 2 years later came back and won MasterChef. Like, he just won. And it's like, you can't count these people out. like sport athletes don't go to the Olympics like thinking they're going to fall or have like this massive moment in the career that's then going to be an embarrassment or a sad moment for them. Like everyone goes thinking they're going to do the best they're going to do, but Survivor's just the same. You don't ever think that's going to happen to you until it's happening to you and it's live. And you're like, holy shit, I'm having a meltdown on reality TV. Like, this is not where I saw myself in 2023. But here we are. And you just got to run with it, right? Like, I saw this thing the other day and it was like, don't think about whether it's the right decision, make the decision right. And I think, like, such a good way of living your life, because if you end up thinking about the ifs and what ifs and the buts all the time, you can go around in circles forever, but it's not the life you're living. Like in your actual day, you might as well run with what you've got and sort of try and make the best out of that. And yeah, like love this game. And I'm so glad I did it. I love my experience and I love my adventure and would do it again in a heartbeat. Like I that's the thing. I don't see the mental health side of it as being part of triggered by Survivor at all. That was just me going through my own thing. And it just sucks that it happened to be a merge in Survivor.
I mean, Scott, I love seeing your story throughout this entire season of Titans vs. Rebels. Thank you for answering what was going to be my final question. It sounds like you would go back if asked. So that is wonderful.
Definitely.
And I do hope you have that opportunity. Where can people find you online?
Just on Instagram, really. I tried. I'm not really a big social person, but Instagram, I've been trying very good. I've been trying hard to post a little bit more. There's a lot of cool shit going on at Mona, so I feel like I've got a lot to share.
Oh, that's awesome. I loved following your Instagram throughout the season. Awesome. Your scrapbooking, it makes me want to go to a hobby store and get some. It's so wonderful. I hope you continue doing it for the rest of the season. But Scott, thank you so much. We had such a great time talking to you, and we will see you all next time on Survivor Now podcast.
Yay. Thanks so much, guys.